You are now listening to Fighting for Your Life podcast. I am your host, Miguel Ramirez. On today's episode, we have one of my training partners from Branches Jiu Jitsu, a veteran and co-founder of Veterans Breakthrough, a Jiu Jitsu blue belt, Chris Howard. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. It's exciting to have you on. I was right before we started the show, I was telling you I was excited to talk to you about what you guys are doing with Veterans Breakthrough. Mainly, the name of the show is Fighting for Your Life, and you guys are doing something that is like so in line with that, And I'm excited to talk to you about what you got going on with the nonprofit and the tournaments that you guys are doing. For those of you that are listening, if you guys want to follow the podcast, you can follow us everywhere at Fight Life Pod. You can also find our website, fightingforyourlifepodcast.com, and that'll take you to our YouTube channel. You can subscribe there. The best thing that you guys can do to help out the channel is to share this with somebody else. Let them know that the podcast exists. If they're into fighting, if they're into MMA, that's pretty much what we talk about here. There's so many different reasons why people fight. And, for some people, it's a stress reliever. For some people, it's therapy. For some people, it's just a hobby. And then for some people, it's a way of life, Yep. So that's kind of the purpose of this podcast, is just to kind of get people's perspective on their life with martial arts and fighting. So, yeah. So with that, where did you start with martial arts? What was your first experience? I'm sure it's probably as a kid.
Yeah.
Right?
When I was a kid, I actually was in wrestling. So I grappled, right? It was interesting, my journey into that side of the world, even because I played basketball. And I remember my 8th grade year, I sat on the bench the whole time, so I didn't really play. I practiced.
Yeah.
But I
did the same.
One of my good buddies came up to me and said, why do you play basketball? You sit on the bench the whole time.
Yeah.
Why don't you come try out for wrestling? It's like, I've never done wrestling. I don't know. And all my friends that did it were 5 years old when they started.
Yeah.
I'm here in 8th grade. I'm like, okay, let's give it a shot. And I remember the first year, obviously I was second string. I wasn't like junior high. I don't know if they have varsity, but I wasn't first string, so I went to the second string kind of tournament and I ended up winning my first year. And I was
really,
like, I love the sport.
Yeah.
So my freshman year, I went out and went out for the team. There was no tryouts. We were at a small school. So I just do remember, for me, freshman year, I was 98 pounds. I didn't even make lightweight. It was 103. I couldn't eat enough to even get to 103. But I always, after that, it was always cutting weight, and, from there to get on to varsity. But one of the things for me was just grappling. It's putting yourself to that ultimate test, right? To push yourself. It's a team sport, but it's also an individual sport.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what I really fell in love with it. And just continued on with that. And, after I went in the military afterwards, but I kind of took a break. I didn't really know much about jiu-jitsu or any other grappling type of sport. So I just never done it.
Yeah.
So fast forward 20 some years, I got kids now, and, they got to that age where I was like, I want them to do wrestling. And I took them to a wrestling club here local. And
was that before jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, before jiu-jitsu. Okay. And they didn't really get into it. They're still kind of young at the time. We actually went to Carlos's, and he's like, well, give them another year, because they were still kind of small. Yeah. And so we went to the wrestling, and they didn't care for it at all. But then they showed a little interest in jiu-jitsu, so I took them back to Carlos's, and they started doing jiu-jitsu, and it was not even a month. I'm like sitting there watching. I'm like, I gotta do this.
Yeah.
I gotta get back on the mat.
So getting them into jiu-jitsu is what got you into jiu-jitsu?
Got me back. Yeah. Got me into jiu-jitsu.
So did you do jiu-jitsu before that, or you started after they did?
So I did the grappling. And then when I was in the military, I did a year in the Army. And they combat, or what do they call it? Army combatives. Okay. So so I learned a little bit there, but nothing to.
Yeah. Not like going to class and. Yeah. Okay.
So it wasn't until they got into it that I really was like, I got to do this again. So,
wow. That's cool. Yeah. Dude, your kids too, like they kick ass, man. Yeah. Like it is impressive watching them, they're small, but they'll fight the biggest kids in the class. Yeah. And it's like, when they fight, it's like, we're the same size, and I'm gonna come after you.
Yeah. I know you help out a lot there with the kids class as well. And I do it sometimes. And I remember, some of the kids, one kid asked me, should I take it easy on him? My youngest, right? Yeah. Maximus. And he's a little smaller for his size, but I'm like, no, don't take it easy on him. He ain't going to take it easy on you.
Yeah, exactly. He does not take it easy on anybody. So. Oh man, it's funny. Yeah, 'cause and like you're saying, when we're helping out, I remember when they would come by, and I was like, sometimes when the kids are smaller, you want to tell the bigger kid like, "Hey, take it easy." But then once you get to know Maximus, it's like, just go for it, because he might surprise you and put you in a bad spot.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, it's funny, man.
So
that's cool. That's awesome. So besides jiu-jitsu, did you have any experience with any other martial arts, or has it just been grappling pretty much?
grappling. Yeah.
Okay.
I've always wanted, when I was a kid, karate, or, back when Karate Kid was a big thing when we were younger, but never did anything other than grappling, and then now jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. You know what? Funny story about Karate Kid. I peed in his pool.
Oh,
yeah, in New York. My aunt was his Spanish teacher. No, he invited us over for a barbecue. It was like, nah, I'm just kidding. I didn't pee in his pool. Maybe I did. I don't know. It was a long time ago. But she was like, she taught at a school, and she was his Spanish teacher, and she was like giving him I don't know if maybe she was like teaching him on the side because he was doing like the movie stuff.
Right.
And I remember going to his house. He gave me a headshot and everything. Everybody was super cool. But nice. Kind of a weird connection to Karate Kid.
Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, man. So as far as so now you decided, you had an idea. I mean, you fought, pretty much in the military, like you're serving the country, and then obviously when you're doing that, we have the connection. And once you leave, so a lot of times we feel like we want to do something to help out our community and the people that we served with. And I know that you and a couple other people have kind of came up with the idea of, starting Veterans Breakthrough. So what was that idea? What was that thought process when you were thinking about it?
Yeah, it's interesting. We all have stories. Veterans, we've all seen different things. We have all different background and stories to share. For me, I did 11 years total, got out from active duty, went back into the reserves because I felt something was missing. I think we all go through that, serving the country and then taking that uniform off. It's like we just got stripped of everything.
You kind of lose your identity.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's about really understanding that and rebuilding that. And what kind of baffled me is nobody shared that. Right.
Yeah.
And it's not the first rodeo, right? Veterans been getting out for years and going through this. And, I got back in because I was missing it. And then I knew I was like, oh, I had it then.
Yeah.
What's missing? I don't get it. So I went back into the reserves. I went from Navy, did a year in the Army, went back to the Navy. Long story there. But, I ended up volunteering in 2009 to go to Iraq. Went out there for a year, came back, and I ended up getting out finally at that time. And like many, struggle with different things, getting back into civilian life. And, whether you served overseas or not, it's a challenge going back. And many may not admit it, or maybe may not like to admit it, or maybe it doesn't affect them as much. But there is a journey that we all have to understand when we do that. I struggled through a lot of things, when I got back, and I didn't really understand. In 2019, I actually went to a Tony Robbins event, and it completely changed my life. And this event led me to another one of its events. It was like a week long.
Okay.
Reinvented my entire life.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, this is what veterans need to understand. This is what they need to do to realize why they're feeling the way they are. He's got something called the 6 human needs. The 6 human needs are certainty, uncertainty, significance, love and connection, growth, and contribution.
Okay. And
these are ways that we fulfill our needs in life.
Okay.
And once I really started to understand these needs, I said, that's what veterans need to understand. Because when we go into the military, we're kids. Right. I don't know when you went in, but 18.
I signed up when I was 17. Yeah. I went right after I was 18.
So we're going from living with mom and dad to going and serve our country, and we don't know how to be adults. We learn in the military, the military way. And then when we get out, we're missing a lot, right? Because if you think about these needs, right, we have the certainty of the roof over our head, the paycheck on the 1st and 15th, food, a medical, legal, everything.
You could be flat broke, but you're going to be okay.
Right. Exactly. And then the variety, right? Going from base to base, duty station to duty station, mission, wars, whatever. Yeah. And even if you don't go anywhere, maybe you get stationed in one place and it's stateside. Yeah. You still have new people coming every 2 years, more or less. Right. Probably even more than that. Yeah. So constant variety everywhere we go. Right. And then, of course, significance, the uniform, the awards, the certificates, everything, just years in service, all of that significance driven. Right. and then the love and connection, which is camaraderie.
Yeah.
And so once I started to realize that these were the things that we need to really help veterans understand, we can do this in many different ways.
Yeah.
There's no one size fits all. And that's where Veterans Breakthrough the concept got born, is how do we, instead of focusing on the symptom of the problems, PTSD, anxiety, depression, homelessness, all these things, how do we get to the root cause?
Right.
So that was the concept of Veterans Breakthrough. How do we help veterans? Because everybody's different.
Yeah.
For me, jiu-jitsu has been huge because it fulfills those needs.
Yeah.
For other people, maybe something else.
Yeah.
But if we can help them find those avenues that help them move forward, then we can help them, not just temporarily, long term.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. No, I definitely get that, because that so much of like I was saying, I don't know if we were already recording, but it's like, yeah, I think it's just such a big part of our identity.
Yep.
And it's a shock when you're done.
Yep.
Because it's like, well, this is like all I knew. And it is, there's something about the military that they don't tell you, that, or at least in the Air Force, it was different, because the Air Force is probably the closest one that's more like a job than any of the other ones. I mean, it's still the military, but a lot of times you go to work and when you're done, you're done. But they don't tell you that it's not a job. Like, this is your lifestyle. This is a way of life. Like, if you get in trouble outside of if you have a regular job, you get in trouble outside of work, it doesn't affect your work really.
Right.
In the military, if you get in trouble outside of work, you're still representing the military. So you get in trouble when you're in the military, even if you're outside of it, getting in trouble. But once you get out of it, like you said, the people that we grew up with, like just that camaraderie and like having that security, like you said, it's just, everything is just changes overnight. And it's like, well, if you're not set up for it, like it really can throw you into depression. I tell a lot of my friends, like we all, or a lot of people, it's like you go through this phase of just, it's like you're almost like homeless. Like you don't know what to do. You grow your beard. Everybody looks homeless when they leave, right?
Right. Yep.
It's like you look at them 3 months later, nobody shaved in 3 months.
Yep.
And then it's like, what do I do now? And that, I think, and jiu-jitsu has like the community, like you said, and and being able, there's something about being able to work on something to get better, getting better at anything that really, helps you out.
Yeah. And that goes to the last two of those needs, growth and contribution, right? It's the top four, what Tony says is our primary human needs, right? Everybody has to fulfill those in some way.
Yeah.
But the growth and connection is where we get that ultimate fulfillment,
Yeah.
right? It is, if we're not growing, we're dying, right? Everybody says that. Everybody knows it. I think many kind of say it, but don't really truly understand the meaning behind it.
Yeah.
But it is, if we're not growing, we're dying. In jiu-jitsu, we're constantly growing. When you think you're not.
Right. But if you think about, even in a literal sense, if you're not doing anything at all, you're dying.
Yeah.
You're literally just dying.
I've always said that, if we even look at positive and negative, right, there's always that neutral in between, right? But neutral is negative to me because it's going nowhere, which means if you're not moving, you're moving back. Because everybody else is moving forward, right?
Yeah.
And I figuratively speaking, right? It's, that's how we have to move forward. We have to grow.
Yeah, yeah. So when you were in the military, well, obviously, compete. What do you remember your first competition experience? Like in not in jiu-jitsu, but like the first time you had to step out on the mat and compete against another person. Did you remember what that felt like and what you were kind of thinking or feeling?
Yeah, it's one of those things where, I mean, obviously grappling or wrestling in high school is a little different than jiu-jitsu. You're wearing singlet, tights.
Yeah.
So it's like the first time
it's like underwear pretty much.
Yeah. And then, back then in the early 90s, it was like, not like they have today, these awesome singlets.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it's one of those things where you're almost like the center of attention. Some people love that, right? And
yeah,
I'm not one that needs to thrive in the center of attention. I don't need to be the center of the party, type of mentality. But it was one of those things where I know going out there and leading up to the competition, you get in your head and you start to think and you just see everybody around and I mean, obviously this is a small high school, but the stadiums are filled because wrestling was one of the big things for our school.
Yeah.
And you kind of get stuck in your head, but once you step onto that mat, it's almost like everything disappeared.
Yeah.
And it was just me and the person in front of me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that was something that I've never really understood because when I was growing up, a lot of people would call me shy. You know,
Yeah.
I wasn't one that was outgoing.
I was the same way.
I would get onto that mat and it didn't matter. Right. And
It's almost like you could express yourself on the mat.
And, you know, an interesting story at one of the events I went to with Tony Robbins, Chuck Liddell was there.
Oh, really?
And he came up on stage and Tony was working with him. And I never would have thought of that. Chuck Liddell.
Yeah.
And one of his things was public speaking. Like he had the fear of public speaking.
You hear that, right? Yeah.
And I mean, you look at this big beast, Chuck
That's
Liddell.
knocked out all kinds of people, the Iceman.
And, you know, I never really understood it until, you know, you're just saying that now. What did you feel stepping out in because I'm sure it was the same for him. You get in that ring, nothing else exists except for you and that opponent.
Right.
You know, and then it's up to you. Nobody's there to help you. It's
it's just you and them. Yeah. You know, I have another podcast, Opposites Attract, with my wife, and actually on the last episode we were talking about that. And there's something about when you're in the present moment, there isn't really fear when you're in that present moment. The fear all comes from beforehand, and it's your thoughts of what's going to happen in the future.
Yep.
But when you're in, like when you said, like when the bell rings, when, you know, they say fight or whatever, there is no fear because everything just kind of, like you said, everything goes away.
Yep.
But you always hear like fight. If you ever watch fighters being interviewed, boxers or whatever, it's like the butterflies before you get out there. But once that bell rings, it all goes away. And even like, I remember playing football, it was the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, I would get put on the kickoff team and I would have the butterflies and I'd be lined up and I'm like, I have to hit somebody because I know that as soon as and I might get laid out in the first play, but as soon as we make that first contact, like it's like, oh, okay, I know how to do this.
Yep.
You know, it's weird how that is, but the fear is just our projection of what we think is going to happen. It's like all the worst case scenarios.
Yep.
But then once you start, it's like, oh, I've been here before.
And, you know, one thing I've heard in the past, it's the difference between fear and faith because they're both imaginations of the future or your vision of the future, but one is with certainty and the other isn't, right? With fear, it's you're just letting your thoughts go wild, where with faith, you know,
with the unknown. Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I heard that and I was like, wow, they're both the same. The only difference is one's unknown and one is known.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so did you, you said, in the military, well, you did, the combatives class in the military. What is that like? I remember watching like, Henry Gracie, like he kind of, I don't know if that is true or whatever, but I've seen him say like, he's helped like develop the whole course and maybe at least the jiu-jitsu part of the course that they implement.
You know, it was interesting because I didn't know again much about jiu-jitsu when I did the Army combatives. But it's really a lot the same. I mean, you're using the uniform as, you know, a gi basically to do chokes and stuff like that.
Okay.
So it's very similar.
Yeah.
So
that's cool. Yeah. I remember I have one of my best friends is a Marine. And I remember when he went to the Marines, I was like a couple years behind him in school. And, you know, I joined the Air Force and they came out and there's something about Marines are just down to fight, you know, that's just how it is. But I remember going to hang out with him after they went to boot camp and we're just kind of watching TV, having some drinks, and all of a sudden they just start beating the shit out of each other. I'm like, what is going on here? I was like, I hope they don't look over here because I'm not trying to be fighting anybody, you know, but yeah, it's just funny how it goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So once you get out of the military. And then, so what was the thought with the, once your kids started growing up? I mean, obviously you had a great experience wrestling.
Yeah.
So when you were thinking about putting the kids like into sports, I'm sure, did you play any other sports besides, you know, basketball and wrestling?
Yeah. Growing up, I played baseball.
Okay.
Up until kind of my, I guess, junior high year, I had stopped after that. And a lot of small town kind of, political type of things, right? If you weren't the kid of so-and-so, you sit on the bench type of thing, or you don't play as much, you know? So I kind of didn't really care for that and just kind of quit the baseball side of things. But
that's where the individual sports is like, you perform and you're out there.
Exactly.
You know?
You can't hide it.
Yeah.
So, and I played football in high school as well. Again, small town, but kind of a neat, interesting concept or story, I guess, to share is We were in the Sports Illustrated.
Oh, really?
Yeah. For the longest losing streak in American high school.
Oh,
history.
no. For what was that for? For football?
Yeah.
Oh, my. What?
Yeah, it was, I think my freshman year was the last year they won a game, and it went on past my senior year and then years past that.
You didn't go to Cocoa Beach High School in Florida, did you?
No.
Because I played football there one year, and we lost like every single game until like the very last game.
Yeah, it was my 4 years in high school and probably another 3 or 4 years after that, no games won at all.
Wow.
Straight losing streak.
So when you guys win a game, it's like the Super Bowl.
It's like the Super Bowl.
Right?
Yeah.
That's hilarious. It's funny when you see that on in the NFL, like you'll see one team that's been losing all year and then they win the last one. They've been out of the playoffs forever, and it's like they lose their mind.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. But so obviously once you have kids, you start thinking about sports and putting them into sports. And so what was your thought with sports? Obviously, eventually you're thinking maybe wrestling, getting them into wrestling because you got two boys.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, wrestling was one thing I really wanted them to do, or I mean, grappling. So jiu-jitsu is just the same, for me.
Right.
But it's really about what it brings, right? That fight with inside, right? The discipline, it's really, I call it controlled violence, right? It's the ability to be able to act when needed, but it's controlled.
Yeah.
Right. And I wanted my kids to learn that, right? It's not about, being the bullies that are out there, right? They gain so much power by doing that, but
Right.
It's about being able to control it. That's the more powerful side of things.
Yeah.
So I really wanted my kids to have that, to be able to know that side and to be able to trust in their own selves, right? Because it brought up, for me, it brought up a lot of confidence in me growing up as a kid to be able to do that.
Right.
So,
and I think, something that you mentioned, like being seen as shy. I don't know if you felt you were shy growing up, but being a shy kid, because I know I was, like, you almost like you automatically have lower confidence, right? And how do you think wrestling, what did wrestling do for that?
I think back then, just being able to go out there on the mat, it gave me the confidence and to be able to, I didn't win state or anything like that, but, for not wrestling since I was 5 years old, like everybody else, I made it to sectionals, my junior and senior year. And then just being able to do that brought confidence within me.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that kind of that label, right? And that's how I look at them now, is these are labels that we put on ourselves, right? And it's not, somebody else can say it, but you have to accept it as a label.
Right.
Right. So you hear it over and over. Well, he's just shy. You start to believe it.
Yeah.
And, today I look at it as like, I don't think I'm shy. I just,
maybe you're a little more reserved.
I'm more reserved, right? I hold, I don't need to be the center of attention.
Right.
That's not my style. Right. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Before I would call myself shy, right? Or, people would label it as shy. And,
right.
I'm a thinker. I love thinking. I love processing things in my head. And that's just how my brain works. It doesn't make me right or wrong. It doesn't make me better than anybody else or worse than anybody else. And I think these labels are powerful because it could make or break us, right? Even with veterans and everything we're doing with Veterans Breakthrough.
That's true. Yeah.
Because what we're doing here is helping veterans without that stigma of the words PTSD or depression or, any of that. We're not here to put labels, right? Because once we put that label, it can make or break somebody, right? If you get that, you see those people that get that diagnosis, cancer, and all of a sudden, boom, I've got cancer, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
It's almost they accept it and then they become it.
Right.
And that's the thing that, for Veterans Breakthrough, it's not about accepting that labels. That's a stigma that society's kind of put out there. But everybody has stress, right? Post-traumatic stress. It can happen driving a car and seeing an accident.
Yeah.
It's not just a veteran thing, but really helping veterans understand that it doesn't have to be a bad label.
Yeah. Somebody could break into your house.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned the labels, and this is something that I've been thinking about recently. In the past I've had a temper, and I know that like there's been like that label of being angry, right? And like you were talking about accepting that. If you accept it and that's who you are, it's weird not to be angry.
Yeah.
Which is like, if now you want to be happy, it's harder to do that. It's harder to be that because you identify yourself with being angry.
Yep.
You know, so that is, and that's, I think that's just, maybe it has to do with like how we think people see us, you know, and having, and letting go of that and just not really caring what other people think about us. Is like, look, I understand maybe I was angry, but I need to let that go for my own sake.
Yep.
You know, but yeah.
Yeah. The words have a lot of meaning. You know, we give them, everybody gives anger a different significance in their life, right? What that word means. Some people that's a really bad word, you know, and so others it's like, oh, it's you know, it's a normal thing for a guy to get angry. I don't,
right,
you know,
right,
it could be socially accepted type of thing, but you know, once we start to put these words into play, it really depends on the individual person that's using those words, because we all have different ways of viewing things. And so one thing I remember, it was on an audio that I was listening with Tony again. I have a lot of experience with Tony because I've listened to him so much, but yeah. He was talking about the same thing, anger, right? And he's like, he would get angry. I mean, you could see when he's upset, you know, like his people would just like skirmish, like fix it now, you know.
Tony's people?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you know, it was one thing that he learned himself and he shared, and that's how I learned, right? That's why I think, you know, stories or podcasts like this, you can learn so much from other people.
Yeah.
And he talked about changing that word of anger to the word peeved. Peeved, it's a funny word, right?
Right.
You just smiled, right?
I'm so peeved right now.
Peeved right now. And you think about it, it's bothered, it's molested. I mean, that's kind of the definition of it, which is anger. It's another same thing.
Right. But it's not it doesn't have that. Yeah. There's like like an emotion to anger.
Yeah.
Peeve doesn't have emotion really.
It makes you laugh.
Right. Exactly.
I'm so peeved right now. Yeah.
You know what? That is hilarious. I think I'm going to think about that from now on.
Yeah.
Next time I start getting angry, I'm like, oh, I'm getting so peeved right now. But you can't be angry if you do that.
Yeah. And that's really what it is, right? It's now you're just redefining those words in your brain, you know, and that's psychology. Right. I don't have a psychology degree, you know, but I can understand how I could put labels to things. Right. So we put those labels, right. No experience in life has any significance, any label except for the ones we give it.
Right.
You know, so that's where, you know, coming to helping veterans or even what you're doing with, you know, this is important because we can help people understand that they're in control of it, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Dude, that's awesome. Yeah. So you have Veterans Breakthrough and you have a tournament coming up. So where can people find you? Let people know how they can follow, you know, your social media and all that if they want to get a hold of you and contribute or join the tournament and what you're looking for. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Veterans Breakthrough is the name of the organization. We're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn as well. Veteransbreakthrough.com is the website. And so March 2nd, we're having our first tournament, and we're trying to keep it small to kind of learn the loopholes of running a tournament because I've never done one before. So we're doing a kids-only tournament. It's kind of the main focus of bringing kids in. So anybody's welcome to come.
Okay.
And they can find that information on the website. We're looking at capping it at 120 kids right now for the first year. And then after that, we're going to do a Battle of the Branches. So the idea behind this is really to get veterans that do jiu-jitsu that want to share their story, how it's helped them grow post-military, and just have a fun kind of, you know, Battle of the Branches of rivalry.
Yeah, camaraderie thing.
Let's talk crap to each other.
We can make fun of each other like we always do.
Yeah, you know, like Marines, you know, with the crayons.
They can bring the crayons.
So that's kind of the idea, is just to have fun with it, you know, and we're looking to, you know, find veterans that want to compete in it, want to share their story, you know, even potentially do a podcast like this to share their story and how jiu-jitsu or any type of martial arts has helped them in their journey.
Yeah.
And we actually just got a Fuji Sports donation from them,
awesome.
Hyperfly as well. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
that's
the
awesome.
Fuji Sports, we're actually opening it up to any veteran that wants to share their story. You can find it on our Instagram. It's $250. So we're going to basically have a little vote. Veterans can go out there, share their story, how, you know, martial arts or jiu-jitsu has helped them in their post journey.
Yeah.
So the instructions are on the website, so they can win that $250 for a new gi or whatever they want to.
Nice. And that is from Fuji?
That's Fuji Sports. Yeah.
Nice. Dude, that's awesome. Yeah. The Battle of the Branches, dude, you should have like different, like for the winners, different, like the Marines, they can get like a box of crayons that they can eat after the tournament. Like just different things that'd be funny for different brands.
And that's our goal in the future, is really to get more gyms in the area, expand this down the road, but get more gyms in the area. And our idea is to raise as much money as we can. And jiu-jitsu is just a part of what we do with Veterans Breakthrough, because it's a tool to help veterans with their journey. We have other parts of the Veterans Breakthrough that helps them to grow in life and to really understand what's going to help them grow and become that best version of themselves. But the idea of the jiu-jitsu side is let's raise money. And next year, my idea is to really get different gyms in the area, and whatever gyms raise, a certain amount of money, we're going to return that as a scholarship for a veteran to be able to do jiu-jitsu for free for a year.
Yeah.
So that way we can get more people into it that's never done it before. You can get that journey for them. Get the word out. Yeah. And I mean, it's so impactful. I've just in the small, affiliates of gyms that we are a part of.
Yeah.
I've talked to veterans that it's changed their lives, and weight loss to, that controlled violence, just getting to be able to let it out and do it in a controlled environment.
Yeah. So. The camaraderie, there's very few places where you'll find camaraderie like the way we have in the military, and jiu-jitsu is, it gets pretty freaking close. Yeah. I mean, I've never, been to combat or even close, but man, the bonds that we make, I mean, we're sweating on top of each other. We're simulating killing each other, and you develop some great friendships there.
Yeah. And, that's another great point. I mean, it's interesting because, PTSD, they're a little different in ways, but the idea of this is you don't have to be at war to have that, right? I mean, it could be things that happen, like we said, a car accident or something like that could give you that, and everybody's affected differently by that. And I know there's a lot of stigma out there. Well, you weren't a combat veteran, or you didn't do this, or you didn't do that. How could you have PTSD? And I think that's bullshit. And we need to let veterans understand that, because everybody can be impacted by that, right? Just the journey of going from military life, like we talked about with those human needs of fulfilling. We know how to fulfill every human need in the military. Right. And then when we leave, we're back to, the civilian life, and we don't know anything, right?
Yeah.
Where do we go for medical?
Right.
Does that get paid?
Yeah.
So it's really helping veterans understand that. And it's really interesting. I mean, we can even compare it to, let's say, back in and not so much maybe today, but when there's a lot of manufacturing type of jobs, these guys would work there for 20, 30 years. Yeah. And then they get that pink slip saying, sorry, we downsized, or we got a robot to replace you.
Right.
And that's all they've known their whole life.
Yeah,
they're going to go through that same curve of what do I do now?
Trying to find purpose, trying to figure, you're figuring out your whole life again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we definitely see that a lot in, the military, any other position like that, right? The first responders, right? They have that camaraderie, the, firefighters, police officers, paramedics, they kind of deal with the same kind of concept of military. That's why I see a lot of nonprofits for military and first responders together,
right? Yeah,
because it's the same camaraderie. It's the same kind of understanding of those needs. So.
Right. Sure. Yeah, no, I think it's awesome what you guys are doing. Yeah. And I'm excited to go out there, and thanks for inviting me, to go out and record out there. Cause I think if you guys watched the last episode where we were at the grand opening for our friend, Rick and Eric. That was a fun episode, being able to just grab people. So I figured we'll kind of do something similar, maybe grab some guys from different branches and have them sit. They can tell us about their experience in the tournament and that, and why they fight and all that stuff. So it'd be a good time. That'd definitely be fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, have you had any situations where your wrestling experience or martial arts experience has come in handy? Maybe not where, maybe just the confidence from it, being able to stick up for yourself, or maybe actually had to use it in some certain situation where you weren't expecting it. Have you had any situations like that?
Not then really outside of jiu-jitsu, or outside of, civilian world or whatever you want to call it here, I guess. Yeah, I never really had to use it in any way. But I do recall it was interesting that, when I was in the Army for a year, and part of that was combatives training, and so we had this kind of battle of the platoons, there, and I was I volunteer. I want to do the combatives part, right? But I didn't know much of jiu-jitsu. I just knew how to wrestle.
Right.
And there was another guy that was my same weight on my platoon. He's like, well, I want to do it too. And it was only one per platoon for the weight categories. I was like, oh, I'll just bump up, you know?
Okay.
And so I went up to the higher, and I remember this guy that I was going against, he was built like a brick shit house, and he's like probably 30 pounds heavier than me. I was like, okay. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do here.
Yeah.
But getting to see, you know, that, you know, this big, strong guy that outweighed me by 30 pounds, I was able to use my skills, you know, from wrestling side, because I didn't know much of the, you know, combatives or jiu-jitsu. And I was able to put him in a rear naked choke with it. And I didn't even know. I just watched him.
Just instinctively getting your arms around his throat. Yeah.
But yeah, nothing outside of that.
Putting him in the sleeper hold.
Right. Yeah.
That's what it is before you learn jiu-jitsu.
But you know, it is something that I think, you know, just knowing it, you can walk around with more confidence, you know, whether you're a man or woman, right?
I think it's super important, for women.
I tell you, if I had a daughter, she'd be in it 100%. She wouldn't have a choice.
Yeah.
You know, but I think it's so important that to be able to do that, right? And it's a discipline that you can teach your kids, or, you know, your spouse or whoever it may be, that can keep them more comfortable in life, you know, because there's so much bad that happens around us, right?
Yeah.
But it's better be prepared than unprepared.
Right. Yeah. That, like the saying, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Exactly. Right? Yep.
Yeah. And no, especially for women, I think I've mentioned it on the podcast before. Like for my daughter, I was like, once I started learning about martial arts and the UFC and then, you know, jiu-jitsu and everything, and I was like, you know what? Like that is something that she has to learn, because, you know, it is what it is. Boys get bigger. Sometimes they don't take no for an answer. And, you know, with jiu-jitsu, it's different, because she can be smaller, and it's not even so much that she's going to be submitting somebody or, you know, whatever, but it's having enough skill to hold somebody off long enough so that somebody can come and help you.
Yeah.
You know, and I've told the kids, it's like, look, I don't expect you guys to get a black belt, because my kids, they don't maybe as like enjoy it that much, but I'm like, look, when you guys can defend yourselves like properly against most people, you don't have to be a black belt. But when you can do that, then it'll be up to you whether you want to continue doing this or not.
Yeah.
You know, but until then, we'll keep training, and then, you know, but and I've seen the difference, the confidence that it gives them once they start picking it up and they start doing some things. It's like, wow, like it's like I'm powerful. Yeah. Like I've got some things here.
Yeah, you know, it's one of those things. I know there's a lot of out there about bullying and stuff happening in schools, and I mean, it was there when we were kids too. But you know, I think it's just so much more seen now with social media and everything. But I mean, this is a way to help stop that, really, to be honest with you. And I know there's an organization with one of the bigger jiu-jitsu guys out there that started something with bullying, and I think it's great. I mean, you think about it. I tell my kids all the time. I put them in scenarios like, okay, if you're at school and there's a bully picking on some other kid, you know, how do you handle that, right? And I'm not saying go choke them out.
Right?
No, but you can walk in there with more confidence, knowing he can defend himself and stick up for the other kid. You know, and that's the thing is, right? Is bullies, they get that power by, you know, being that bully and trying to, you know, but as soon as somebody stands up and isn't afraid, they're backing down, you know, and that's how we're going to stop bullying. So I think it's huge. Yeah.
There's a lot of people that feel or think that like bullying can be taken care of by the school or even by the parents. It's like bullying has to be taken care of by the kids themselves. Yeah. And the only way that they can do that is if they have the confidence. And the only way you get that confidence is through training and repetition.
Yeah, I think I've seen that before where somebody's like, well, the parents need to be teaching their kids better, the ones that are bullies. I'm like, well, if their kids are bullies, it's most likely the parents are unaware.
They're not there.
They're not there paying attention to it. They don't care, or they just think their kid's okay.
Right.
You know, and so it's not those kids or those parents that can fix the issue. It's us parents getting our kids prepared to stand up for those other kids. So
yeah. Have you so how old were the kids when they started?
Let's see. So they're 9 and 10 now. So they're probably 6 and 7, I would say.
Wow. Okay. So they started early.
Yeah.
Have you seen a difference in their demeanor, their confidence since they've started?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's actually interesting because we just started back up with soccer this year.
Yeah.
And they got invited to play on a team. Well, last year they were on the same, or the team with one of the kids that the coach is doing it. He kind of put together a team, and he didn't realize how young my kids were, because they were at the bottom of that team.
The age threshold or whatever?
Yeah. So their kids in the next age up now, and they invited us to be part of the team. And we got there, and it was like, 11, 12, and 13-year-old kids, and mine are 9 and 10 now.
Yeah.
So I'm like, he's like, I didn't realize your kids were that young, but he's like, do you still want to be part of the team? And I'm like, I think they'll be great. It's going to push them,
right.
And my youngest is, he hasn't hit his growth spurt yet, which I'm sure will come soon, but he's like half the size of everybody out there.
Yeah.
And all these kids is he playing on our team? And I was like, yeah.
Just wait and see.
Yeah. And he went out there and he started he's just a beast at whatever he puts his mind to. And these kids are like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I think it's good to, cause it does. I mean, he would, maybe if he didn't have this, he would be more afraid. Like we said, he goes against jiu-jitsu kids twice as tall as him, and he's not fearful, So,
yeah, it's like a regular thing.
Yeah.
And that's that's the thing, is that when you do this so often, if a situation does come up, like for most other kids, it's so foreign to them, and it's that fear.
Yeah.
That fear of the unknown, of what's going to happen, but for them, it's not really that unknown. Like, they're pretty familiar with people trying to grab them, people trying to literally choke them or put them in a headlock. It's like, this happens to me 3-4 times a week, you know?
Well, and even going back to the tournament coming up.
Yeah.
Right. If your kids have never done jiu-jitsu, or they're doing it, but maybe never competed, I know there could be a lot of stress behind that for both the parents and the kids. Right. And maybe that fear of the unknown, of not being able to, or know what to expect, and get some of these bigger tournaments in the area.
Yeah.
It can be
it's intimidating.
Yeah. Intimidating. So this is going to be a lot smaller. And so kids that have never competed, this would be a great start, to get them out there, just to get that feel of what it's like without all the stress and pressure. We're not going to be like, oh, your kid, weighed 0.1 over, they can't compete.
Right.
It's going to be a lot more relaxed, and it's really about raising awareness to what we're doing, and the power of jiu-jitsu and what it can do, and the healing power as well. So that's one of the things where, trying to get that word out there can help maybe some people that have never done tournaments to come do it.
Yeah, so that's a great point too, because the first when our kids started jiu-jitsu years ago, we went to one of the local tournaments. It was one of the bigger ones. They give out swords and stuff like that. Oh my goodness, that one, it was intimidating. Yeah. I mean, it was the volume in that place was like 10.
Yeah,
all the entire time. And it was like, it wasn't the adults, it was all the kids, and you have the parents just yelling at the top of their lungs. It's like, holy crap, like, what is going on? And like you said, it's having a tournament like that, it's like a little bit more intimate and friendly.
And it's about raising the money, right? Is kind of our goal behind this. So a lot of the tournaments tend to be a little pricier. This one we're doing $50 to get kids in, so we're trying to keep it affordable. And, the idea is all that money is going to go help a veteran.
Dude, and that's an awesome opportunity. Like you said, if you haven't competed before, if your kids haven't competed before, it's an awesome reason to compete, to help out veterans break through. And it's a great opportunity to kind of get your feet wet with competing. If you haven't done it, kind of work your way into some of the other tournaments if you decide to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, So what is your plan for like the future of Veterans Breakthrough? Like putting on bigger tournaments and events, or like anything that you have?
I mean, there's a lot that we have in the works of how we're doing this. We started off with doing retreats, for veterans, and kind of helping them understand why they're feeling the way are, kind of really the psychology behind it. But I think that gets a little too, maybe intimidating as well. We're talking about psychology. I'm not a psychologist.
It's like we're going to sit in a circle and talk about our feelings.
Yeah.
So I don't know if a lot of dudes like veterans want to sit.
Right.
And
So we created some programs that really help veterans understand a lot of the things that we see in the military and after, and how to use that, and really using those stories to help and show, because my story can be similar to somebody else's. Yours can be as well. So that's kind of the concept. But the idea moving forward, we're really looking at the jiu-jitsu side is going to be big. Eventually getting to where we get the tournament bigger, maybe do multiple throughout the year, to where we can kind of space them out, growing, as we grow bigger, but the other side of it is these retreats, but it's more my idea behind this is, how do we bring back that military feel, right? Maybe it's a camping type of thing, getting veterans together, going out camping, setting up a little kind of missions in a way.
Maybe like a jiu-jitsu retreat type
That's
of
another,
thing.
yeah, that's another one that I've contemplated in. So,
Yeah.
but really to kind of get that camaraderie back together.
Yeah.
Because there's again, there's a lot of amazing organizations out there that help veterans do certain things, and when the veterans go do it, they feel great. They get that sense of purpose back. They get that sense of camaraderie, but it only lasts so long.
Yeah.
And then they go after, and then they start to go maybe spiral back down. So how do we help them see that? And this is why you feel that way, right? And this is how you can continue that feeling, because we had that in the military because we continued to serve.
Right. There was a business, actually the business that I met my wife in. It was a network marketing business, which a lot of times these network marketing businesses have it's almost very similar to like church. There's a lot of similarities in how it's like the weekly meeting and we all kind of come back. Yeah. But there was something about that, kind of like you said, in the military, you keep coming back. You're always serving with your people. And when you're in a business like that, like you're going out and you're trying to sell stuff and you're getting beat down by the whole world. And then you come back the next week and you're with all your people and you're getting optimistic again. You get fired up and you're ready to go back out there, and it's like church, the same thing. Like you go to church and then the rest of the week you're getting beat down and it's like, okay, I need to go back. You recharge. And it sounds like that's kind of like the goal, and what you want to do is just to have a place where people can keep coming back, recharging, and just keep pressing forward and making progress in their life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And another idea I had of some other of future events is, I'm a Harley guy, so I ride.
Yeah.
I thought about even doing some type of trip together where we do a trip and then use that as a growth opportunity, right? And as we go and we kind of bring into the details of why this is helping them grow and what is going to be their kind of go-to. So everything is really educational behind what we do to help them understand what's going to help them, because everybody's different. So that was another idea that I'm putting together in my head. There's actually a neat show on The Long Way Up, it's called. So Ewan McGregor, he played Star Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yeah. Him and his friend Charlie went from the southern tip of Argentina up to California on electric Harleys.
Oh, really?
I was like, man, that would be amazing. I don't have 3 months to do it, but maybe it's something smaller along that line because that journey on the road.
Huh. What is it called?
A Long Way Up.
Long Way Up. Okay.
They got 3 different series: a long way around, a long way down, and a long way up. Okay. So one is through Europe, Russia, and all the way around the globe, and then one went down through Africa.
Interesting.
So, okay. Yeah, so I thought of that, and I was like, man, that'd be amazing. Like that time on the road in solitude, doing something you love. It's just that time to clear the mind, to, just kind of grow through things. And you're sitting on that bike, nothing but quietness,
There's something about those moments that there's different times when they come. Like maybe it's like in nature when you're just out there and you see something that's so beautiful. Yeah. It's
being in the present moment.
When the bell rings, right?
Yeah.
It's like everything just clears and you are thoughtless and speechless in that moment. And that happens. I can imagine, like, I haven't ridden motorcycles, but I mean, you go on a beautiful drive and you're just looking around and it's like, it's just being present, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you made that comment earlier, being present in the moment. I think the same thing, getting on the mat and you're present in that moment. Right. Nothing else around you matters except for what's in front of you. Yeah. So another idea was doing some type of, almost in a way, a mission trip in a way, right? Where maybe we go to, whether it's a third world country or something, and find maybe an organization to do something for, maybe build, I don't know, a house or school, or, you know, help something with, those that are less fortunate, because it's another way of growth and contribution. Right. Right. We're contributing back to those. And there's something about it. I mean, for me, Veterans Breakthrough was that, right? Yeah. It's my way of contributing back, because when I'm focused on how can I help others, I'm less focused on, the kind of the poor me victim mentality of my things that are wrong, right? It's one of those things where you can see others are struggling too. Well, my life's not so bad. How can I help others? Because it helps me grow. And that was probably one of the biggest things about Veterans Breakthrough for me. It was my therapy, kind of like jiu-jitsu is my therapy. Right. I just find my own therapy sessions throughout life, and Veterans Breakthrough was one of those.
When you say jiu-jitsu is your therapy, like how is it that jiu-jitsu is your therapy? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so it's one of those things where, I guess going back even, we were just talking about the present moment, When I go to training and I go there to grow, myself, it's focusing on me. Right. And I see that a lot is we get so caught up in life and we're like, oh, we got to go, keeping up with the Joneses mentality. But when do you take a moment to work on yourself? Yeah. Right. A lot of people talk about waking up early, taking that first hour of your day to yourself. It really does change your life, and I see that with, taking time out of your day for jiu-jitsu or taking your time out of your day for other things that are for you.
Right.
And it's almost like that moment of being selfish, but we have to be selfish that moment to be able to give more.
Right. There's something, my wife says it all the time, and she was mentioning it like around the holidays a lot of times. I mean, the holidays just passed, but like people sometimes get into this funk or they feel down around the holiday time because maybe they're comparing themselves to other people or maybe, there's some things that have happened in their life that kind of put them in a funk. But like any time that you're feeling that way, like you were saying, if you go and serve and help other people, it just does something to you. Like it lifts your spirits by helping somebody else.
Yep. And that, interesting you say that because that's kind of how I am during the holiday times. And I don't know if it's contributes to the military because, in those times you're usually not with family and you're by yourself or with your other, people from your unit or wherever. But it was one of those things that I've always kind of been the bah humbug Scrooge, type of person, but not in a bad way. I'd rather, I could celebrate Christmas in July, right? It's not about the season or the day.
The day. Yeah.
It's about family. It's about people around you, friends, and all of that. That's important. And I remember years ago, when we're probably about 10 years ago, my brother had young kids at the time and he felt that they were kind of, a little, I guess, spoiled in a way. Right. And he's like, well, we're not going to have Christmas this year. And they came out to Colorado where I was living and we ended up packing like over 100 lunches and went out to the homeless and we handed out the food.
Yeah.
And from that day, it was always something that I wanted to do something on Christmas. And it started out small, 100 meals. It's kind of small. It's not much cost wise. And then from there, we kind of built up and we've helped multiple families out over the years. Yeah. This year, I was actually fortunate to help some kids in Nicaragua, about 100 kids. We bought gifts for all of them.
Dude,
and
that's awesome.
My kids wrote handwritten cards to them, thanking them or, telling them Merry Christmas and all that. Hope you enjoy the gifts. And, so we wrote all these letters and signed every one of them. So it was another way of giving back. So
yeah, that's pretty awesome.
It's definitely something that brings my spirit up during that time because that's what it's about.
Yeah, for sure. So, hey, I wanted you to tell me, so you have the Veterans Breakthrough and you have your board. So who does the board consist of? And, like what do they do?
Yeah. So we have, right now we have, I think 5 board members. I have to go through my head here. So it's just your traditional board setup. So I have my chair of the board, which is Philip, one of our
other training partners.
Partners. Actually, they're all training partners. So
yeah, okay, cool.
Philip was an Army guy, so hopefully he'll be on this podcast and share his story here soon.
Phil was on the last episode for a little bit. Yeah, we're gonna get him on for his own episode too. So
nice. Yeah, and then let's see. Then we have Kyle Zip.
Oh, okay, nice.
Blue belt Kyle. We sometimes that's why we name our people.
Yeah, blue belt Kyle, purple belt
Justin Vickery.
Okay, nice. Purple belt.
Yep, purple belt.
And purple belt Justin.
And then Eric from Rejuve Gen.
Oh, okay, nice.
He's on the board as well. So purple belt.
Yeah, purple belt Eric.
And you don't have to be in jiu-jitsu to be on the board.
Yeah.
Just a note if anybody's looking.
Yeah, if anybody wants
we're always looking for board members and I think we kind of talked about it earlier. One of the things I'm not the greatest at is social media side of things. So it's we're always looking for people that have those skill sets and want to help give back to a cause. And
yeah, for sure. And if you guys want to help out Veterans Breakthrough, make sure you give Chris a call or get a hold of him on the website, on the social media, however you can get a hold of Chris, Veterans Breakthrough, if you want to help out or contribute to the cause or join the tournament or any of that.
Yeah,
if you want information, you guys can hit him up. So when you've competed in jiu-jitsu, and is that any different than competing in wrestling? Did it feel any different? What was that like?
So the first 4 tournaments after starting, because I wanted to go do a tournament right away, it didn't feel any different. And it didn't feel any different until I got my blue belt. And I think this is just another label significance thing that I put in myself, right? The blue belt,
Right. Yeah.
And, I went through the first 4 tournaments. I ended up getting gold at every one of those. And, it was like,
Nice.
oh, this is awesome, and my kids, of course, because they started a month earlier, they were like, well, Dad, I already know that stuff. I've been doing jiu-jitsu. I'm like,
my kids are the same way.
So I was like, yeah, but I've wrestled for many years. And my oldest is like, well, if you win this first tournament, I'll listen to you. And I got gold. And he still didn't listen to me. And then 3 tournaments later, he said the same thing and still didn't listen to me. But he's starting to listen now.
You got to get somebody else to tell him the same thing you're saying, and then he'll listen. That's how it goes.
Yep, that's so true. But yeah,
tell me, I'll tell him in class. I'll be like, hey, you should do this.
And it's funny because that happens. But yeah, so I think it was the same in the beginning. And then I created this stigma in my own head when I became a blue belt. Well, I can't wrestle anymore. I got to do more jiu-jitsu. And I ended up losing my very first blue belt tournament. I didn't make it past the first round, and I just psyched myself out. But then I went back to another tournament and got gold again. And then I went to World Masters in Vegas. And that's when I actually ruptured my bicep and tore it directly from the bone and had to go through surgery and 6 months of recovery.
Yeah, that's rough.
But finally got back on the mat just recently, but I wasn't prepared.
Yeah.
I tapped basically because I was so exhausted. The guy got me in a triangle choke. I fought it off. And then after that, I was so dead. I couldn't even breathe. My heart was racing so bad. I'm like, and I didn't even defend it. He put me back in the triangle. I'm like, tap.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I think doing that though, it's helped me realize, okay, I need to get back in track. And that's one of the things I love about jiu-jitsu. Back to the kind of maybe the therapy idea is it really helps me see where I need to grow. Right. Yeah. And if I'm coming in and not in as good a shape as I was last time, what's going on? I need to make changes in life.
Yeah. And one of the things is having perspective too, I think, because we beat ourselves up. Like I've beat myself. I remember one tournament, it was one of those, I wasn't prepared.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I did terrible. I was upset with myself. And it's weird because you kind of tell the kids not to be upset.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like, I was upset, I let myself down, like, because I know what I'm capable of, and I wasn't doing that. And the great thing is, like, when you really step back and look at it, regardless of whatever happened, we signed up.
Yep.
We made weight and we got on the mat.
Yep.
There is not many people that actually even do that.
Yeah.
So when you kind of sit back and you have a little bit of perspective, it's like, all right, maybe it didn't go exactly the way I planned, but at least I did something. I tried, and okay, I lost. I got tapped, but now I can get better, and I don't know. I'm sure you'll probably agree, is like, you remember more. Runs through my head more than submitting somebody in a tournament.
Yep.
Like, yeah, I'll remember the submission or whatever, but I'll remember more that when I didn't live up to my potential. And then when you're going to training, like, those are the things that help you keep pushing and get better, Yeah.
And that's so important. And we do learn a lot from our losses. And, I think the thing is, when we win, we tend to party more, right? We're like, but when we lose, we start to ponder. Right. And I kind of used that in a way too, is when I did my tournaments, every time I went and won, I even said, okay, what do I need to work on? Right. Yeah. Because that's my way of continuing to grow. I don't like to just sit back and coast. So it's like, okay, yeah, I won gold, but what could I have done better?
Right.
What could I do better next time? And that's, I think that we all need to have that mentality, right? Is we get stuck in that winning and then wanting to party, but it's when we become at that level and we win, it's usually when you get defeated again,
Right.
So
yeah,
it's important to teach that and to our kids even. So.
Yeah. And it's true. You almost learn more from the losses than you do from the wins. Like those are the things, like you said, it's like, this is what I need to work on. That is what I need to work on, and it kind of helps make it clear, But real quick before we get out of here, I wanted you to kind of give out all the information again, just in case anybody wants to get a hold of you on Instagram, on your website. So, yeah.
Yeah. So veteransbreakthrough.com is our website. You can find all of the different links to the social media on there, but Veterans Breakthrough is both Instagram and Facebook is what we're on there. I don't know the exact hashtags and all that. That's social media.
Yeah, I'm sure you can search Veterans Breakthrough on the search bar.
Absolutely. And so March 2nd is the tournament. It's going to be throughout the day. I think roughly around 10 to 4, I think is what we have planned. We're going to have, the kids tournament starting off. From there, we're going to do the Battle of the Branches. We're going to have food trucks there.
Nice.
We're going to have different tables there as well. You'll be there doing some, podcast there. So it's going to be more than just a tournament. We're going to have some fun. It's going to be about giving back and
be an event
and doing that. Yeah. So
yeah, that'll be awesome. So yeah, make sure you guys go to veteransbreakthrough.com. Follow Chris if you guys are interested in the tournament or supporting Veterans Breakthrough. Make sure you guys give them a call. Make sure you guys go to our website, fightingforyourlifepodcast.com, which will take you to our YouTube for now until we get our website set up. But yeah, you can find us everywhere at Fight Life Pod on all the different social medias. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Chris, for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
And looking forward to going out to the tournament and recording out there. And we'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.